Dr. Bustles,
Present.
Mr. Brennan.
Present,
Thank you.
we're all here. So Kyle, update, you start.
We wanted to bring everybody together to talk about where we are with our legislative work, and to make sure that we were all on the same page. I don't see the microphones on here anymore. Councilman Brennan, can you hear me?
Yeah, they're right here.
They're right here. Okay, good. So we just wanted to make sure that we took this time, because this committee has not met, I think, since October. We wanted to take this time to take a look at the legislation that has been pre-filed and that is pending, and then to talk about our work on the budget requests that we have done and what we anticipate doing. And get your feedback so that we have proper direction and that we know that we're aligned. So, are you guys ready to walk through
Yes.
this
Yes.
legislation? Okay, let's try to not take too much time. Are they here?
No, we got everything we need.
Oh, there they are, there, okay, good.
We got
So let's walk through the legislation first. These are the bills that there was one pre-file date in the Senate, and there were two pre-file dates in the House. And the last pre-file date in the House was this past Thursday. And when a pre-file date occurs, they don't usually publish those bills until 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's really sort of a Friday kind of thing. We've gone through and we've taken a look at bills that were pre-filed that would relate to the city. Kind of the process on this is there's always a lot of bills. And so what we do to try to keep it manageable is that you'll see these bills put in a report like this, and then you won't see any of these bills again unless there is movement on the bills. Unless we're asked to do some special work on a bill. So let me just walk through this rather quickly, and then we will come back to any questions that you guys may have.
So it'll be helpful if you can just flag the ones you think will have any movement. And then if MASC or any other entity is interested in that specific bill.
Okay, thank you. So the first one is municipal election protests. This is responding to some things that have happened around the state in the last couple of years. And it's at the beginning because it is sponsored by the speaker. And so I do expect that there will be some movement on this bill, some attention on this bill. The second one, I do not expect there to be much attention on that bill. The third one, first responders. This is an issue where there's always a back and forth in the legislature on who is a first responder and who isn't, because if you are a first responder, then it entitles you to a number of benefits that in terms of compensation, and more importantly, in terms of insurance coverage for anything that happens to you.
So what's the story behind that? Because obviously, because it looks like it was pre-filed so early, to me, it looks like it's got some type of legs going in one direction or the other.
It just depends on the appetite of the House this year to pass another first responder bill. I think we passed one last year that expanded the definition of
Yeah.
first responder to EMS workers. I think that's correct. Maybe that's still pending. So we'll just have to see.
Real quick though, so this pops up often, to be honest with you, in a lot of counties and municipalities, because like say if somebody calls the fire department, they have to send an ambulance, fire truck, they immediately go to the destination.
Usually fire truck's first one on the scene.
Right. And a lot of counties and cities, because of those employees may be at home, they try to protect and pay them for responding. And a lot
This
of,
is more geared to volunteer
right,
verse.
I think so.
Mhm.
Personally, I do.
This is somebody who jumps in
Yeah,
a
which is a lot of
situation.
the rural counties.
Right, right.
And this is a joint resolution, not a bill. I mean, it's not gonna be legislation, it's a joint resolution.
Yeah, okay, right. So that's,
There'll be a lot of
I
discussion
understand.
on that.
There'll be some discussion on it, and Representative Cox is gaining seniority on the Republican side of the House, so there could be some discussion. The next two bills, I don't think that there will be much discussion of it, except for the fact that there may be something very close to these bills to address the situation in Hampton County this year, where the hands seem to be tied of the state officials to be able to audit the fact that they lost a seven-figure amount. I can't remember if it was 2 million or 4 million. But I don't expect these bills as they are to advance, but they might.
Oh,
Yes.
let me correct myself. I was talking about the architectural thing in a joint resolution. This is in fact a bill.
Okay,
Yeah, so I misspoke.
that's fine.
First responders is a bill, and I was looking at number two instead of.
Number two, I don't expect that to move anywhere. It's too, that's a, I'm mad bill.
Right.
No offense to the sponsor. So now I'm looking at the two McDaniel bills. I don't expect those particular bills to move, but something in that area that expands the authority of state offices to investigate local governments might come up. I don't expect 4661 to move. TikTok on government electronic devices could move.
What about, why do you see 466 not move? This is a major discussion by people today because, prime example, the zoo is putting out the bond that nobody in the public's getting to have any say when they're alternative sources. I think this thing has more legs than you're giving it credit.
It could. I mean, you can always draw a scenario where it could move. And I think that this is maybe touching on some people's concerns. But when you get into a bill that would change the authority of a local county council, of a county council or a local government council over something that has to do with money and debt, you're talking about having to spend a lot of time on that bill.
You're talking about 4661?
Yes.
Yeah, because right
my guess
now, the
is-
penny sales tax is required to be on this exact thing. So why would not other things like that be in there? You know, it's just like the millage rate. I mean, I think there needs to be a lot more discussion at the state level around taxes and how they're done. And prime example is that if you ask for $15 per 100,000, you ought to be capped at $15 per 100,000. You should not get the win of the value of the mill. That should stay within the entities because that helps you overall reduce property tax. That's the problem that we have downtown here now. Is prime example, the library asked for 15 per 100, now they're getting 16 per 100, 60 per 100. They just got a $2 million increase last year based on the fact just the value of the mill. Well, that $2 million could pay for public safety increase that Richland County's worried about in year 3. So I do think that this is something we ought to be talking about. I don't know if it's exactly the way they've driven it, but there needs to be some type of guardrails put around, or we're just gonna keep seeing property tax go up on renters and commercial and small businesses. That's who's paying this, homeowners not.
So I think,
What's the article?
I think another thing with this bill, after reading through it,
Another article. Is this 11?
I have no idea.
after reading it, it kind of goes back to the fact that instead of letting the political subdivision make the decision, they're pushing it back on to the actual voters, the taxpayers. So a lot of things will
Which
fail.
should be.
Right. And that's what, I mean, that's what I read in this bill.
But which article is this? Is it Article 11?
I don't know, we're talking about 4661.
4661 is the legislation, but it's gonna have to amend a particular code section. And that would be,
Yeah, I don't know code sections.
But this,
But the code section that refers to the local government fund would have to be affected by this, wouldn't it?
I think that's something we need to look into.
Yeah, if it's that particular code section, then you have to be concerned with it. If it's not amending
Oh,
that.
this would absolutely affect how the city is able to raise funds. There's no doubt about
Right,
that.
so is this?
Whether it
is
would
this
actually
amendment?
affect the local government fund, I don't know. But that's why I'm saying this,
Section 6.
this would require a very large commitment of time on the part of the legislature to do something like this. And I have not heard anyone up there up to now talk about this is a
Well,
big issue for the
I just
coming-
think understanding a little bit more, because, you know, all of that is not, they're not gonna tell us that you can't do geo bonding and this and that, because we're already capped at 8% anyway, so they're not gonna do that, but some of these other conversations around millage and imposing other direct fees and, you know, bonding outside, I do think, because if they give authority to an agency that we have no say, you know, we're part of a county, we take the hit. And so, I mean, I think we need to just watch and hear.
We will absolutely, be on top of it, but we'll also ask around and see where they think this thing may,
Because, I mean, I wouldn't be in favor of all of this, but I do think there needs to be some more in there, especially when you're talking about a county-wide obligation to a third party.
You know we have any idea where the counties are on it?
Oh, I'm guaranteed they're
Because it's
against
gonna
it.
be, I agree with Kyle, it's gonna be a huge fight to do anything with this.
you gotta remember the temperament of the General Assembly though. I mean, this plays into the hands of possibly the majority. And I'm telling you, after I look at this, they would prefer the general public to make these decisions. It kind of hampers the hands of government when you want something, but at the same time, it forces it, you place it back on the electorate. You say, hey, people want it, we're for it.
Yeah, it's just,
I think, I mean, there needs to be some modification and some guidelines. I'm not saying that I think what they put down here just takes every increase, which you can't do, but I do think there needs to be some type of reform and overall discussion, and it's probably too big of a discussion for them to handle in this session, but.
Do you think it, go ahead.
I think given the sponsor of this bill, that it's not in line with what leadership would initially support, we can definitely have conversations with them.
I know that there's some foot from the leadership to do
Yes.
some reform. I don't know if this all, but doesn't mean that this couldn't be the caveat to really push the discussion a little bit.
Well, this is easy. We could just go meet with the sponsor.
Yeah.
Just ask him his intent.
Yeah, it'd be good to know.
and it could be just the 24, since this is 24 in an election year, it could just be the bill for that.
right, might be.
Can I ask who Pace is?
Jordan Pace?
Yeah.
Jordan Pace he's a Republican member. I think, is he from Berkeley County or Charleston County, or is he from the upstate? I think he's from Berkeley or Charleston County. And he is a fiscal conservative member of the Freedom Caucus.
I'll explain part of it. So that is very wide, encompassing everything.
Yeah.
So, you know, in Georgia, general obligation debt has to be a referendum. That's a normal thing that occurs there. But they don't do it for everything else.
Well, I don't think
I wonder if this, what you're saying, this will lead maybe into certain little things, but we do have certain guardrails on all to some degree. Millage rates are capped every year based upon CPI. General obligation debt's still capped upon 8%, and there's several other little things.
Well, it's not capped to the agency. It's capped as overall growth
It's capped to the
method.
county.
And this might be, we'll have to take a look and see. This might be changing how debt is approved. This could be just saying, no, we're not changing any of
Let's
the
just
rules of how
find
debt's
out.
approved. We're just saying that anytime there's a public vote on it, under the current rules, it has to be on the first Monday in November in an even numbered year. In other words, you can't have,
First Tuesday.
yeah, thank you. First Tuesday following the first month, right. In other words, it might
Unless you
just be.
got a new
a-
election cycle we don't know about.
No. It may well just be not changing how it's approved, but just saying you can't have any votes on these things if it requires the public.
Yeah.
You can't have any vote, like the penny tax. If it's a penny tax, you have to have it on that. Could be that.
Yeah.
Could be just procedurally.
I wouldn't ignore this,
So-
but I wouldn't get worked up over it.
Okay, that was my question,
I
like,
don't
what is
think
the
this is-
bottom line? Okay.
This is one of those election year bills.
TikTok on government electronic devices, I would be interested in hearing, I think that this could be a discussion this year because it's a good election year issue that has been discussed by the majority. I'd be interested in hear if we have any thoughts or
So
positions
for
on that.
background on that also, the city doesn't allow TikTok on any line.
And the federal,
It is blocked.
Thank you, that's helpful.
and the federal government, I think they're gonna put some parameters around, the use of TikTok. Period, with governmental agencies. They may even tie it to funding. If you draw down federal dollars,
Right. Yes, yeah, it's absolutely an issue that's floating around, but thank you. That would make the need for this bill go away. That doesn't always, a lot of times, as you guys know, they'll be like, well, we're not gonna wait for the federal government, we're gonna go ahead and do it.
you see where it says another Chinese-owned application?
I was gonna say, are those specific or are those open-ended Chinese owned?
Don't know. Don't know. The next bill is Mark Smith, Isle of Palms, not the speaker. This looks to me like a bill that came out of a personal circumstance. I don't expect it to move, but it could.
Can we talk to the chair of 3M? To see if she's pretty honest.
Certainly.
They're very close.
Yeah, I know, what I'm saying, we talked to her, she said, hey, this might move.
They're very
And
close.
that way we
Kinda
won't.
interesting.
Yeah, I'm not, yeah, it seems like a very specific,
Yeah, it
Came out of
does.
some certain circumstance, some experience.
Yeah,
some
this is definitely
legislative
personal.
act, Right, somewhere. Firefighter cancer benefit. Maybe I don't understand it.
I'm
I don't
I'm
know how our
confused unless
legislature would spin
somebody is
that.
living in another state and working in state what? I don't,
Yeah, when I see that bill, I'm just like,
can we get some context on this?
sure.
Yeah, it might have.
Just so we know, because it seems very strange to me.
Right.
It might have something to do with their, that cancer fund. Those funds that go to firefighters who, I think it's limited to South Carolina.
But,
So if you're on the Clover Fire Department or the York Fire Department and you live across the line. that
But I mean,
could be
if
an
you
issue.
retire out somewhere else, that shouldn't affect the fund anyway, you know, you still
Well, the
have that
cancer
time served.
benefit, I think is I'm talking about 4680.
Right,
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
So that's, you could be an active firefighter and get cancer and get money out of that fund.
Yeah, but if you're
So-
active working in the state to qualify, but you live somewhere else, I guess I'm not understanding what they're trying to do. That's why I was saying it'd be great to get a little context.
Yeah, so that fund is a little bit different than the retirement. It's different than the retirement. It's like a benefit, like an insurance policy per se.
Yeah.
And if you get cancer while you're a firefighter, then you get access to, they give you some of those funds.
Not to get off, I got a question for you, Daniel, Mayor Rickman. How well do you know Celeste Davis?
Decent.
We probably need to spend some time with her. That's another person, Teresa, that we need to add to the list of people to go meet. Cause a lot of our bills in relation to the city are gonna go through her committee.
Yeah.
And we need to get to know her, whether we like the bills or we don't. We need to make sure we have good rapport with her.
right. I talk to her fairly regularly.
For both those bills, you can see if they get referred, I mean, they're already referred to committee, but if they get scheduled for a subcommittee meeting, first couple of weeks of session, then maybe there's something to it. But
Oh, right,
in
absolutely.
all likelihood,
Absolutely.
these two bills are not going to get a subcommittee meeting very soon.
But it will make our job easier, because we can go to the chair of the committee and say, hey,
If you want to
We're the
raise
city
it
of
for them and make them
Columbia.
think you're interested in it.
yeah, we're from the city of Columbia, we need to know what's the likelihood of this bill moving.
Yeah.
And if we have a good relationship, she'll be like, ah, don't worry about that. Or, hey, you may wanna go talk to the sponsor.
Look, I don't take anything for granted, because you never know.
Well, and that's why the three of us are all up there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then sometimes on Fridays and Mondays. For 18 weeks a year, keeping an eye on this stuff. Our office monitors everything that is read across the desk and all of the new committees that are, all the bills that are set for a subcommittee hearing. And this is kind of the challenge of what we do, which is, it'll be Thursday afternoon, and we'll get a notice that the bill that we're interested in is set for a subcommittee hearing on Tuesday after adjournment. And so you kind of have to move very quickly. And, okay, so first responder retirement income. Again, this is,
They're trying to follow the military, is basically.
right, and this is Mr. Kilmartin, which is probably I think that this should be done bill. And then the question is whether, he's he's Lexington County representative. Came to our, opening of the Finley Park. And I think the chances that this bill moves this year, unless it gains a lot of ground and momentum and sponsors, is low. But we'll see. That's why we have it in here, because we keep an eye on it, because if it moves, we need to know. Local government application reviews is the same, it's in the same boat as the one that we were just talking about, which is if the sponsor is able to bring a lot of support to it, and the sponsor's able to make this a priority, then I think that there's a chance that it moves, but I don't think that there's a chance, I don't think that there's a high likelihood that we're gonna have to worry about, that this bill is gonna be on our list of bills that start to move. And then, the next bill is in the same, the DEI, cannot be promoted by cities, is in the same, I put that in the same category of bill that we talked about earlier, the TikTok bill, which is the social conservative bills, are bills that, there's going to be some of these that pass every year that are, bills that are strongly supported by the Family Caucus and that are preferred by the majority leadership. And so you never know which ones, I don't know exactly which one those bills are gonna be, but there will be some, but all of the bills in that category will not pass.
So this is, you said Freedom Caucus? Or Family
Well,
Caucus? Are those two
I
different
said
things?
Family Caucus, what I'm really referring to is those, there are more than I mean, there's a lot of the majority members want to pass bills that show that South Carolina is a socially conservative state. And so that's just fine. In terms of when you're trying to manage the body, the leadership can't entertain and pass all of those bills. But there's usually some that pass, and so it's really hard in December to see which ones are gonna be the ones. Probably whichever ones pass this year are not gonna have a big impact on the city, but they could, and so that's why we watch these in case one of the ones that passes does have it, and then we have to jump into action and make sure that we minimize the impacts on the city.
Okay, interesting.
Same with the environment, social, no, I'm sorry,
The what?
ESC, I
what
thought
do
that's
they mean?
ESG. It's ESG, that's a typo, it should be ESG promotion, environment and social governance.
What is that? Is that a term, concept that's taken I've never heard that before. Is it what your mission and vision is? You can't be judged on that?
Yeah.
Or your values of a company?
If you're, ESG is environment
Social and governance goals.
and social and governance goals of a corporation.
And it's growing. All the rating agencies now put an ESG score on a lot of the.
It's everything.
Yeah.
Today.
It has been shocking to me in the last 2 years. how
Never
much
heard of that.
it's
I'm gonna look that
grown, nationally.
And
Companies are using it as a gauge to who they do business with as well.
that's right. And a lot of people are opposed to diversity, equity, and inclusion policies, and they're opposed to ESG scores. And that's where these bills emanate from.
Yeah, I think there's been some backlash. Wyoming, Texas, and a few others have really pounded. And some of the banks now, and I know this because some of the ones we deal with, they're struggling because they have to walk a very fine line on who their clients are. But they're being told by some of the states now that if you deal with some of these companies, we're not gonna deal with you. And they're trying to figure out how they're going to.
This is corporate social responsibility.
Yes.
Okay, that I've heard of, but. I've
And
never heard
what
of
the
ESG.
bills, basically what it sounds is you shouldn't use that in the rating system. It shouldn't be a disqualifier if you are or you aren't.
Yeah, Brent and I have already argued,
So you
the
wouldn't
rating
have to
agencies
support
on
a
a few
company that
comments
gives back
they've
to the
put out
community?
there.
Well, it's saying you can't use it as to give them an upper
Higher.
hand on getting a deal,
Higher rating.
higher rating because of that.
Is there any
Wh-
movement on
which-
this one? Or does
Not
this fall
expect-
with the TikTok
not
and the
expected.
DEI? Okay,
Again, these are things that get really dicey when you get into it.
yeah,
So there is always a chance that bills that you don't, every year there are bills that no one thought would move that will become enacted and passed by a body. That's why we watch them.
It
But
would be interesting to know what the feds are doing with DEI.
which administration? The current administration?
Yeah, just well, the body.
It might be a little
not-
bit different than the prior administration.
Yeah, not necessarily the president, but.
Right. So, well, these same types of bills are at the federal level, right?
Yeah.
So, the next one is Mr. Beach from Pickens County, his bathroom bill. And our legislature has not had an appetite for taking up bathroom bills, so I don't expect this would pass, but it would affect the city were it to pass. Abandoned buildings, ding, 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 ding. This will be something that we will work on in concert with the people who work on this because it's important to the city unless you guys tell me that it's not important to the city anymore. But I think Councilman Brennan could probably give us chapter and verse on the different things that he's seen in his private life that would highlight the importance of the abandoned buildings tax credit, which they're never extended indefinitely. They always put a sunset date on it so that we'll have to come back and take a look at it again. So this is the year for that.
But December of 2035 is pretty far out compared to what they've done in the past, isn't it?
Mr. Palin, you always ask for more than you expect to receive.
And when given options, take
That'd be
both.
great if they put it out that long.
Well, and maybe, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I just said, when given options, take both.
Absolutely. And maybe the appetite's changed. But under the prior Finance Committee chair, it was rarely were you given more than 3 or 4 years. So we'll see.
So we'll probably get 5 out of it, hopefully.
See, well, and it's an important bill, and that's one that I do expect to move. And we will be paying attention and helping get it through. The next bill is very interesting because I look forward to having a conversation with Mr. Hewitt on his short-term rental bill because he introduced another bill that he pre-filed another bill that looks exactly like his existing. He pre-filed his bill that looks exactly like the bill that he pre-filed last year. So we're just gonna figure out what that is. We have been cited as an example of what he prefers short-term rental regulation by local government to look like. So we will be closely following this as we were last year, but it's not something that's going to impact us because we're in line with what the bill, if his bill passed into law, it would not change, wouldn't have an impact on Columbia, on City of Columbia operations currently.
Deal.
But I do expect there to continue, that bill wins the prize for the most articles written on the bill, the most media attention on the bill versus how far it's moved. So far, it has not moved out of committee in 3 years. And there's been no activity on there is no companion bill in the Senate. So no activity in the Senate, only subcommittee, perhaps committee discussion in the House, but it hasn't moved. But there have been, there's articles written on that bill every year, and I'm sure there will be again this year. A lot of attention on it because it's such a hot issue all across the state. The next bill is interesting, and this is, we probably should have put next bill is 4586 by Wooten, Private Landowner Protection Act, and then down at the bottom is the Annexation Fairness Act, and by Mr. Beach, and I think those are the only two in this. As we've discussed before, the legislature has not taken up an annexation issue with any meaningful effort. Any meaningful work has no meaningful work has been put into changing the annexation law over the last 10 years. And it's because this is such a difficult issue. I don't expect either of these bills to move forward, but we will watch them if they do. And if they do, it will open up all kinds of opportunities for all kinds of interests to make changes to that section of the code.
It's interesting that somebody's pushing de-annexation, because that's come up a couple of times.
Right, and Mr. Wooten is over in Lexington County, and they've had more than a few discussions on annexation and de-annexation over there. So I'm sure relates to something that he is dealing with in Lexington County.
So I suppose both the county association and municipal association completely disagree on this particular item.
You have a very keen antenna, Mr. Palin.
I used to work for the county, so.
Well, the county is.
I remember those days, annexation was totally different discussion than when I came to work here.
We have been in discussions with county association on donut holes, the ability for the city to take these 3 properties or these 7 properties that are in a donut hole and be able to just bring them into the city. And the county association, they have a policy on this. And their policy has about 14 points to it. And if you meet all 14 points, then they're in favor of your proposal for donut holes. And the 14 points are, you can't comply with them all. So the answer is that they're not in favor of filling in donut holes. They're not in favor of giving city councils the ability to fill in donut holes without going to the property owners and getting a substantial majority of the property owners to either vote in a referendum or sign a document that agrees to be taken into the local government. And so it never goes anywhere.
About $5 million a year.
The Hickson bill, Mr. Hickson from Aiken County is a committee chair in the House. So you always want to pay attention to bills from a committee chair.
I would
By this-
prefer him to file a bill that requires the state to actually maintain the roads they already have within city limits.
This bill is, I'll be surprised if this bill gets any substantial traction, only because this is the argument that goes on all the time. Because of the for historic reasons, our state DOT owns so many more roads than most state DOTs own, Therefore, they get the great lion's share of the road maintenance money in the state, and it's never enough. And there's always a fight over what they're maintaining and what they're not.
Well, all the money's only geared to the highway. Every bit of the gas tax, everything is geared to the highway expansions and redoing there. There's no money being spent. I mean, I got entire neighborhoods in the city that are completely DOT roads, completely. We don't have 1 inch in there that we control.
And they're not
Yeah.
spending the resources to maintain the roads.
They're not spending any money in it. They don't have them. The commissioner will tell you that. You know, we're continuing to ask for funding for those roads, especially our gateways, because they're highways. I mean, Gervais Street is a highway. It's a US one.
Right.
So, yeah, I'd like to see a different type of bill filed.
So we talked about annexation there. Housing. This bill was in the news. We'll wait to see if anything happens on this. Mr. Jones is a representative from Greenville County. There must have been some situation where a church wanted to build some affordable housing, charge rents, and maybe there was a threat to their property tax exempt status. But we'll see if this moves. It very well could move, but we'll also see if there's issues about it that.
I think the question that keeps coming up is that churches have logged land and never done anything with it. And I think from a local standpoint, you know, if they're building public housing and rental, I mean, that needs to be constituted differently than church property. And I think there's a fine line there. I mean, you know, one of the questions comes up a lot with folks who are big on audit. We need to have a county-wide audit to make sure that the people who are supposed to be paying property tax are and those who aren't. And I don't know the last time that that's happened. A lot of property changes hands quickly, you know?
So on the church properties, it's been a constant struggle. We've had numerous meetings with Bernie Maybank on this to discuss it. And when it's church owned, I'm actually kind of surprised on this one. It seems odd. I'd be interested to see the situation because here locally, we struggle that churches own caterers, coffee shops and everything else. As long as they have one little word that says this provides funding for our overall mission of the church, poof, they're tax exempt. And that's just, and we've argued that.
Well, I think the definition.
And we can't, even Bernie has said, we're just not gonna win that.
Yeah, and I don't think it's really geared to religious or, I think we have to define the difference between religious and charity, and I think that's the part that gets cloudy, and I think trying to make sure that what moves forward, because we need help with housing. A lot of our religious organizations own a lot of land, but there's also ways to do that through CDCs and others. So, you know, hopefully we can this bill will create more opportunities, create partnerships than, controversy, maybe that's a good way to put it.
Well, and that's why the bill is on, for the reason you just stated, Mayor, that's why the bill's on this list. Does this affect the operations of the city of Columbia? To the extent that it affects tax exempt status, yes, but it's not something that's gonna, it's not gonna have effects other than that. However, we are very interested in affordable housing, so it's on there.
Yeah.
Tax exempt, excuse me.
One question, I'm sorry. Is there, going back to the previous bill, do you have, on the road annexation thing, do you have amendment language for that bill? Because that's something that you would probably want to have some amended language ready for that, especially since it's an issue for the city.
Well,
Interest
the
for you.
bill itself is talking about
Yeah,
cities giving, I mean, we're not giving any more roads to the state because they're not maintaining what we got.
But you said you'd like to see a different bill.
Yeah, I'd like to see a different bill that says that they're required to maintain the roads that they already have. That's not gonna get included in that.
But why wouldn't it be included in this?
Because it's not going anywhere.
Sure.
The TIF for affordable housing related to redevelopment of military installations.
Clearly, Charleston Naval Base.
Right, and again, it's just an affordable housing bill that we want to make sure that we, just in case it starts to move, we would want to see if it, we want to make sure that nothing happens in there that would not be, that we wouldn't, you know, that we would need to be on top of. Inclusionary Housing Act. This is one more swing at inclusionary zoning, which is not allowed in South Carolina, as our fellow councilman reminds us all the time, Mr. Duval, is that inclusionary zoning is not legal in South Carolina. You can't pass an inclusionary zoning act. So this would limit
Under
it
the
to
Constitution?
population. Huh?
What, is there a bill that says inclusionary zoning is not legal that was passed, or is it, like, what makes it illegal?
I don't remember that
Okay,
exactly, whether I don't think there's anything that says that it's not legal. I think that there's limitations on the power of local governments that maybe it's been challenged in court that says the local government cannot pass an inclusionary zoning act. In any case, this is trying to give some limited authority for passing inclusionary zoning in South Carolina.
but you don't see it.
I'm gonna check on that to
Yeah,
make sure.
that'd be
to-
helpful.
I'm gonna have dinner with him.
The next one is, okay, be patient with me.
Hey, let me just add on the Inclusionary Housing Act, we don't require it, obviously, but it does come up sometimes to some degree when we talk about these development deals where we're gonna give a 35 or 50%, but it's set more as like a goal that we ask them to consider it, including affordable housing. 'Cause I don't know if we've actually done one in any of the deals, but the discussion has been coming up more and more. So I don't know if that is going to, if this would affect that or not.
Let me-
One incentive project that has it included.
But was it a requirement
It
or
was.
it was a requirement?
I agreed to it.
I don't think that there's any prohibition on a negotiated agreement for this for me, this for you. We'll do this if you'll do that. I don't think there's any prohibition on that. There is a prohibition on passing an ordinance that says if any developer is going to build anything here, they have to have this amount be affordable or pay into a local fund for that, which is what inclusionary zoning basically is. And Missy,
There's a lot
am I
of
sounding
entities
correct to
who
you?
want- Yeah, you are. There's a lot of entities who want us to pass that.
Yes.
That increases the cost of development, so that's a mixed bag. So there's a lot of
There are better
affordable
ways to
housing
do that.
groups who want us to pass that, which we can't right now. But yeah, there are better ways to
100%.
incentivize, I believe.
And so these are the kinds of bills that come up that would say, okay, well, can the legislature let local governments do at least inclusionary zoning in this particular situation or this discrete circumstance?
Well,
So-
your summary says voluntary. I don't think they mandate it.
Right. The other thing is, anytime you're gonna take a bill up like this, you're gonna start talking about property rights. And when you start talking about property rights, that's going to be a long discussion on the House floor. So these bills often, unless the leadership is convinced that the bill needs to pass, it's usually not something that they wanna make a lot of time. Okay, the next bill is a bill that I am happy to bring back a full summary of this bill to everyone here. When I read the summary of the bill and then I looked at the bill personally. Mayor, let me start over on this one, because this 856 by Senator Davis is somewhat important. This bill, when I read the summary, I didn't understand it. So then I went and looked at the bill, and then I was reminded of the limits of my intelligence. And when that happens, I emailed Scott Slatton and I said, this sounds like something we would not be in favor of. And he's at the Municipal Association, and he said, just the opposite. This is a bill that we put together with Senator Davis. And so we drafted this bill to address, to address concerns the Municipal Association wants to address. And so we are 100% supportive of it. This is the Municipal Association. So I can I just was bringing it to the committee to see if anybody's heard anything about it, if you guys are on top of if this issue has any resonance with anyone. But we can certainly bring back a summary of this bill, because we expect that it will, at a minimum, get a subcommittee hearing in the Senate and begin to move, which means could it pass this year? It could, but it usually takes a couple of years for a bill like this to pass the full legislature. The next one is development impact fee changes. This bill provides that a city, county, or both may impose an impact fee that applies only to residential developments, only to commercial developments, or both. I thought this was but when I read through this, I thought that was interesting because I didn't really know that impact fees, how they had to be applied. But my guess is that
According to legal advice, you have to apply it to everybody, right?
you have to apply it to everyone. And I thought that this could be an interesting thing for the city as well. But we'll watch the bill and see if it moves.
Sounds good.
Okay. Law enforcement, crime and guns. The first one is worthy of attention because it is sponsored by Mr. Johnson in the House and Mr. Alexander in the Senate, who are both senior leaders in the party. So, the president of the Senate. And so, I'm pretty sure that we have municipal prosecutors. Is that correct? Ms. Knox? And are they full-time or part-time? Full-time prosecutors. Okay, so this would apply to us. So this is something that may well pass in the current age of sharpness and divisiveness in the world. This is a trend where people who are involved in the judiciary and in law enforcement on all sides are being harassed, and so they're trying to keep their personal information away from the public as much as possible. The next one would not really have a strong impact on the city of Columbia. Maybe we could take it off of our monitoring list, but we had it on there. Oh, I'm sorry, it's for local law enforcement agency. Yes, it would. So it would impact our local law enforcement agency to develop mediation standards. So that's there in case it moves, we'll be on top of it. And then the final one is Senator Davis. When we see that it says that a community provider, I think that's the final one, isn't that correct? Yes. I'll jump to the other ones in a minute. A community provider may create a safer syringe program, and a community provider is defined as an organization, public or private, that provides substance use disorder assistance and services such as counseling, homeless services, advocacy, harm reduction, et cetera, et cetera. That's the city. I assume that encompasses the city of Columbia and the work that we are currently doing at our
Rapid shelter.
Rapid
Yeah.
shelter and other things. So it would apply to us, so we put the bill in there. Okay, now, this is where we go back and we try to touch those neurons that were really firing heavily in May and June. refire them so that we can remember where we were when we left off. And I'm gonna need the help of my colleagues on this. Constitutional carry, graduated sentences for gun offenses. This has been a big priority for our CPD. The graduated gun offenses, not constitutional carry, for many years. And those two bills are if I remember correctly, the constitutional carry and the graduated gun sentences are married into one bill in the Senate. And there is enough resistance and opposition to constitutional carry that the graduated gun sentences is sort of, that portion of the bill in the Senate is that the people who are in favor of constitutional carry are trying to make sure that those two things stay married in that bill so that they can get their constitutional carry, because they know people want graduated gun sentences. And that's got the bill stuck in the Senate. So we will stay on top of that, and I expect there to be a lot of attention on that this year, because there always is attention on Second Amendment issues like constitutional carry. And to some degree, the other issues on graduated sentences. There is a constant push me, pull you on return to covered employment. And this is a bill that would allow us to have officers in CPD retire and stay at the force without having to take 12 months. Is that right, colleague?
Yeah.
Thank you. And so the bill's made it out of the House, but it's sitting in the Senate Finance Committee. Just so that everybody understands, these bills always, the resistance to these bills usually is the impact on the balance of funds at the retirement system. So,
Hey, let me ask you a question. If they ever actually give you a report that shows that effect, will you get that to me?
Nobody's seen that.
Because I've heard that now for 20 years. We went back to 2000 and made those changes. Can't ever get the report. It makes no sense to me. If someone comes back, they are putting money in the system that they're gonna get zero benefit from. So I don't understand the actuarial study that proves that that's hurtful to the system.
but I think that the concern is that next year, there are gonna be this many people who retire. That's what we expect. That's what our actuarial studies say. If we pass this bill, next year, there's gonna be this many people that retire. Because there's gonna be a run on the bank, because you're gonna have a disproportionate number of people who are gonna retire.
They've been saying this for 23 years now, so I mean, I'm not buying it. And so the actuarial studies that they put out there for it, we do our own actuarial studies on certain things. I'm more interested in what are the parameters that they put, because I can make any study come out to what I want it to say based upon the parameters I put in the front end, and those usually aren't shared very well unless you read in the small print of the study. So I'm just looking, I've asked now for 10 years trying to find that information. And it always seems to disappear before it ever gets actually put out there. I'm not saying I'm gonna ask y'all to go bully anyone over it, but I have been just trying to get that information for a long time. And it's not just police officers, it's actually for everyone. So right now, didn't they do a proviso each year for the last 3 years that keeps rolling this forward anyhow?
For critical
Yeah.
workers or critical law
Determining
enforcement
critical
officers,
workers,
something like that, yes.
we have found, we give them our list and they approve it. We don't wanna change that, by the way, unless it becomes, in law.
It's an issue that is constantly at the forefront of people's considerations, especially in these times of challenging personnel retention and hiring, and so we stay on top of it. Is the city of Columbia's position on this bill gonna carry the day, make the difference? Probably not, but we certainly need to know what's going on and weigh in. If something starts to get out of line that would really be obtuse to us, then we need to make sure that we're on top of that and joining with other people and dealing with it. Municipal election changes. This is the bill, we're held harmless in this bill now because this is a bill that is trying to get little, small local governments that don't do a very good job of running elections out of the business of running elections and transfer that to the county. When this was originally written, this said, this got rid of local election commissions. And City of Columbia and multiple other jurisdictions, local governments, we all went to the sponsor and said, we want to maintain our local election commission. We do not want Richland County Election Commission, which this is 2 years ago, or a year, at least a year ago. I think it was 2 years ago this bill was there. We do not want, or maybe 3, we do not want Richland County Election Commission, which had some issues at that point, to be in charge of City of Columbia local elections. The bill was changed after our petitions and strong opposition to what was written. The bill was changed to allow, to not require local election commissions to be abolished and to go away, but to put the local election in the hands of the county government only if the local government asked for it to be. So it's permissive on our part. So we can hold on to our local election commission. We can continue to run our local elections at the city and not have to turn everything over to Richland County.
So where is that? You think it'll be,
The House approved it. It's in the Senate. I think that there's, I don't know, Senate Judiciary is a pretty, I would assume it's in, yeah, it is in Senate Judiciary. Senate Judiciary has a lot more bills in the committee than they pass every year. And so we'll have to see whether this is something that the leadership thinks needs to come out, and if they do, then it will, and if they don't, we'll start it over in the House again in 2025. Well, we do. As I always tell people when I'm talking to them, remember, the system was designed to preserve the status quo and not make change. It's always very hard to change things. Passing a bill is 5 times the effort, if not more, than stopping a bill.
Especially in election year.
Because there's no right.
The next bill is a bill that would impact our animal services and our finances. And that's why it's on here. And so the bill is out of the House after a lot of work on it last year. I believe it's Mr. Hickson's bill, I'm not sure. But the bill is out of the House and it's into the Senate. And I think that the people who are in favor of this bill will be spending a lot of effort trying to get the Senate to take care of the bill. Basically, this, if you guys want me to go through it, I will. Otherwise, it's summarized.
Murphy.
Sorry?
so,
Murphy's bill, Ms. Murphy's bill. Okay.
so basically it's saying that they would have to pay for the care of their animal until they get it back? Like, how would it affect our finances for animal services?
Hold on just a minute, I'm trying to refire those neurons.
I think it's the second paragraph.
Yeah, okay, because, okay, so here, so what's happening is that there are a lot of people who are arrested and their animals are seized because the animals have no other place to go. And they're turned over to the animal services, and the person who was arrested has absolutely no plan to come back and get the animal, and certainly not gonna pay back animal services for all the time they had to take care of them. So this bill would say, if the animal services want to, they can say, hey, person who has just been arrested and we had to take your animal, you gotta pay up front. Pay up front, we'll take care of your animal. Pay us now. If you don't pay us now, we're gonna adopt this animal out. Because, and the expectation is that if that occurs, that they will have a very small percentage of people in that circumstance who will pay up front. But they can pay up front to keep their animal, but that's probably not gonna happen. Because
Yeah.
that's not what happens here. They never come back and pay. Meantime, that animal could have been adopted out to somebody, maybe. You could at least try and not have to go through everything, waiting on the court system to adjudicate the underlying offense, charge, excuse me. So that bill's through the House and it's, it's pending in the Senate. Community development tax credits. I was a little surprised this did not get passed last year because they sunsetted, last year, community development tax credits. This is the community development. We always call it the Bernie Mazik bill because Bernie Mazik runs the South Carolina Association for Community Development Organizations, I think it's called.
Corporations,
Corporations,
CDCs.
thank you. And this gives them, I believe it's $5 million a year that they have, or $5 million over 3 years. And it did not get passed last year to extend the tax credit, so I expect something to be done on that. We have these organizations in the city of Columbia, they do work in the city, and this tax credits will benefit.
So unrelated, I know one of the ones we were interested in last time was the increase in potential municipal fines. And there was some traction, I recall that you had said MASD was working on that. Did anything happen with that? Do we see that coming back up? Because one of the things that Mayor and I and Councilman Taylor, we had talked about was the, some more accountability for litter and
Illegal dumping.
in illegal
Especially
dumping.
dumping.
But that would require the threshold for what is the max municipal fine to be more than 500.
So that bill's still alive.
Okay,
It's not in this report because it didn't move last year.
okay,
If we were to print out this bill, this is 9 pages and some change. If we were to print out the list of the bills that are in our tracking system,
it'd be like 100 pages.
45-ish,
Okay.
45-ish, and we were
But that,
kindly requested several years ago to quit sending that report every week, just send the ones that are moving, because it was choking up the system.
yeah, well, I mean, I feel like that one would affect so many of the other things that we're interested in, so that would be something we want to continue to follow.
Yes, oh, we're definitely following it, and I can't remember, I had a conversation with whoever that was.
Thank you. So, you done?
I'm done.
I want to make a motion to amend the agenda to add executive session to get some attorney-client privilege, legal advice on some legislative issues. Can I have
I'll make a
second?
motion.
You make a motion?
And some,
Did we lose Mr. Brennan? Yeah. So I second it, so. And with that, my motion is to receive legal advice related to matters covered by attorney-client privilege pursuant to SC Code 30-4-70A2. Legislative priority, did you read the roll?
Dr. Bustles?
yes,
Mr. Brennan?
Yes. All right, we're gonna move to executive session.
This is the agenda for this meeting. That's the agenda for the next meeting.